We should also be recording their stories.
Yeah.
It seems to me that when people get old, if no one looks back at their youth, if no one asks them what they remember about their childhoods, how they were formed and shaped, what the world was like when they were growing up, that we lose all that richness, we lose all that sense of wholeness. I keep urging people to record their older relatives. I urge everybody to write journals, to keep diaries. Don't let yourself simply be classified as an aging adult. You've got a whole life there to be celebrated and recorded.
These are important because one of the issues we have in looking for positive images of aging is, what are those? How do we define that? And it's not that easy a question because it rests upon what we consider our ideal of aging, what we're supposed to do as we get older.
And I think that when we talk about the media, you really have to separate out the media that's actually being done. You know, when somebody goes in and they do a story and they're getting it in, either they've got deadlines to deal with. Something that the layperson may not understand is the effect of the advertising industry on the media. And it is huge. Now, it's very easy to vilify the media and to say, dang it, you know, I never see people that look like me, and we're not all in gated communities living a nice life and get to be all sisters together and have fun and go out and play cards. And what was that? The Golden Girls. You know, I always wanted a lanai after I saw the Golden Girls. I was like, wow, lanais are really cool. I didn't even know what they were until I watched the Golden Girls. We'd all like to retire with a lovely lanai to take our friends out onto, but many of us aren't. There are class issues involved. There are cultural issues involved. There are geographic issues involved. For example, we live in the bubble called San Francisco.
And we haven't talked about this at all, but it's something that comes up all the time in the academy. Life has changed. Even the old, fuddy-duddy, kindly professor, absent-minded, foolish, sweet, and tenured. And you're with me. And when the Supreme Court said no retirement age, suddenly all of the older people in a lot of areas, but certainly in the areas of universities, became competition, became the enemy. There are the young, but I'm just as good as they are, and I'm not going to give up, and so forth and so on.
A little over a year ago, for example, the Chicago Sun-Times exposed an email from the operations director at WLS Radio. That's the major talk radio station that's owned by ABC in Chicago. The memo ordered the staff to screen out, and this is a quote, any old-sounding callers. The station operations manager stated in the memo, we don't want to air any callers who sound over 54.
And then when I went into Safeway, nobody was paying any attention to me, so I thought, oh, now I can shoplift.
An understanding that men and women are affected differently by aging, both physically, but also how it's presented in the media. The disparity between, the stereotypical, older man, the older you get, the greater you are, and the younger the women get in the movie. So that we are each of us are responding to the issue of aging to a lot degree on what the media has said. I had promised myself I wasn't going to say this word during this whole thing, but the whole thing about Viagra, that, okay, we've created this thing, we can give it to men, and this will solve all of your issues. I mean, I haven't had that many conversations with guys about it, but it seems to me at the age that one would require a Viagra, you got a lot more things going on in your head than simply getting it up. And nobody is asking guys, well, what is concerning you? I mean, that may be one of the concerns, but I presume you have intellectual and emotional concerns. In addition to that, the Viagra is not going to solve, but nobody's asking men that. And it's an easy thing to say, we're going to give you this and you'll feel better. And so I would postulate that men are getting as shortchanged as women around the issue. It's just, it's couched and covered over in a pill in many ways.
What I've learned this morning is that older protagonists in every medium seem to be trashed one way or another. In the world that I teach in, the world of prose fiction, is that the old are removed fairly early on in the game. Certainly in the detective stories, they're usually killed within 5 pages, and that sort of solves the problem. And one of the problems in American literature and American life has always been the one of early success. It's an anticlimax when you're 35, if you have any success at all in most athletic ventures, and I think it's fairly similar in literature that the first novel brings all the zest of youth. The 10th novel talks about lousy agents, bad marriages, alcoholism, and your gallbladder.
Your audience says, I'm sorry, you're too old, or your body says, in terms of dancing, you're too old. And I think that that response is in fact correct, that we are too old for a certain kind of physical activity. And so I think one has to deal kind of squarely with that and deal with what it means to kind of lose that. Over the years, one of the many issues that I had to deal with really was the loss and the death of my body. The death of it being able to perform the things that I had really spent every day of my life since I was 4 being able to do. And to come to terms with that and to take a look at, you know, what do I want my life to look like? I'm now 61, but what do I want it to look like now? What do I want to do with the rest of my life in relationship to physical activity? And how do I deal with the kind of curious thing that I also feel about becoming a parent when I was quite old, which is as a young dancer growing older and having the opportunity to perform a great deal all over the world, I gained an incredible amount of wisdom and understanding about what it means to be a performer. And at the very point that I felt I really got it, my body said, forget it.
But, like, sometimes I look for men on the internet. If you mention that you're 60,
Oh my God.
nobody will respond to you.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
because a 60-year-old looks like this.
No, it has to do with your-
A 60-year-old acts like this, and she's not at all a sexual person.
Right. It has to
It's
do
like-
with your ad. I put an ad in once, it was 3 words, and I got tons of calls.
Yeah, but I don't want to have just
But
sex.
what were
That's
those
my-
3 words?
No, but my 3 words were Harold, contact Maud.
And it seems to me that the reason for that hasn't fully been touched on, and it has something to do with the fact that we have changed. We, the people in this room.
The only way to create a revolution is with music and a message and people that believe. And I think you should think about starting a new revolution where we step into the shoes of older people in terms of taking the wisdom and the talent we have and leaving the world in the best possible place we can leave it. Thank you.